A young girl was found dead in her own apartment in an upscale building under 24-hour security. The police tried to solve this gruesome mystery for 2 weeks, and only dozens of surveillance tapes helped them discover the sad truth. Sasha Soudian was born on July 4, 1988, in New York City. After high school, she moved to Florida, where she graduated from a local university. After receiving her degree, she took a job as a social media manager for a real estate agency in Orlando. Her career took off quickly, receiving solid bonuses and awards for her good work. Sasha's friends spoke of her as a friendly, sweet, and outgoing girl with a big heart. She was a member of several charitable foundations, taking an active part in their activities. On October 16, 2015, the last day of the soccer season in Orlando, Sasha and her friends went to the stadium to support their favorite team. The match ended in victory, and the company went to the popular Attic nightclub downtown to celebrate. After spending a few hours there, Sasha left the club around 1:30. As it turned out later, she hadn't told her friends where she'd planned to go. She could have gone home or to another bar. Before she left, she arranged to have breakfast in the morning with a friend, Anthony, who was at the club that night. The next day, he arrived at the cafe at the appointed time, but the girl never showed up. She also did not answer her cell phone or social media messages. Such behavior was not typical for Sasha, who was always in touch and would not ignore Anthony, especially when they had agreed to meet in advance. At first, he thought she was just sleeping it off after the party last night, but several hours passed, and there was no answer. Then the young man began to seriously worry about Sasha. Anthony, along with 2 of Sasha's closest friends, went to her apartment in the secure Uptown Place apartment complex, where she had rented an apartment for the past 6 months. When they drove up to her house, they found a girl's car parked in the parking lot. Inside the car, the friends noticed a box of children's toys. On that day, Sasha was supposed to go to a baby shower at her friend Quentin's house, but the gift was still in the car. When they got to the door of the apartment, they started knocking and calling out for Sasha, but all they got was silence. It all looked extremely disturbing, and the friends decided to call 911. The squad arrived at her house around 8 p.m. The cops asked the guards to open the apartment door with a spare key and went inside. At first glance, there were no signs of a struggle in the apartment, but as soon as the officers entered the bedroom, a gruesome discovery awaited them. Sasha's arm and hair were sticking out from under the blanket of the bed. It was clear almost at once that the police were dealing with a murder. There were clear signs of strangulation on her neck. In addition, her torn t-shirt was lying nearby, the same one the girl wore to the stadium. This could indicate that the attack took place immediately after Sasha came home. The pendant she always wore was also torn from her neck. For Sasha's relatives and friends, this event came as a real shock, as she had always been a kind and cheerful person, and it simply didn't make sense that someone would hurt her in such a cruel way. In talking to the police, her family and friends couldn't name a single person with whom Sasha might have had problems. Detectives began their search for evidence, and the first thing they noticed was the persistent smell of detergent in the apartment. The cabinet with household chemicals was open, indicating that the perpetrator was trying to wash away traces of his presence. However, he only partially succeeded. Detectives also found an empty contraceptive wrapper in the hallway and a shoe print near the girl's bed. In the bathroom, they found that the toilet seat was up despite the fact that the girl lived alone. Experts found a fingerprint on it that didn't belong to Sasha. No other clues were found in the apartment. In addition, there were no keys, no smartphone, and no purse belonging to Sasha. Soon after came the report of medical experts, confirming that the girl died of strangulation. One of the doctors said he had never seen such severe injuries to the neck as in this case. This would seem to indicate that the attacker was physically well prepared. In addition, the experts determined that Sasha had been abused. They were also able to find a DNA sample from an unknown male on the girl's body. Unfortunately, there were no matches with him in the databases. In the meantime, the detectives began searching for witnesses and first questioned the security guard who was on duty that night. It was 33-year-old Stephen Daxberry, a former Marine. The management of the apartment complex had hired men with impressive experience in the police, army, and other specialized services, but even that did not help Sasha. Stephen said he saw the girl that night, mentioning that she was very drunk and tried to get into the building, but she couldn't. The girl was missing her ID, badge, and smartphone. According to the rules, the security guard could not open her door without a valid ID or proof of residency. For this reason, Stephen refused to let her in. Sometime later, he went on a routine patrol and saw that Sasha had somehow made it onto the compound after all. He assumed that the girl had entered the building with another resident, who opened the door with her pass, but the girl ran into a new problem. To get into the apartment, she needed a key, which she did not have. Each door in the complex also opened with a code lock, but Sasha couldn't remember the right code. She turned to Stephen and asked him to walk her to her car to look there for the keys again. Without the guard with his pass, she would no longer be able to get into the complex. Stephen went with her, but there were no keys in the car. Sasha suddenly stated that she remembered the code to the door, and they went back to her apartment. But there again, the girl was unable to enter the correct password. After that, the guard said he had to go back to his post. He promised to help her solve the problem if at the time of his next round Sasha still could not remember the right code. However, the next time he went to patrol the area, Sasha was nowhere to be found. It was not until the morning that Stephen noticed her in the company of a man he had not seen in the complex before. The guard failed to describe his appearance in detail, so the police had to look for this unknown man practically at random. We could only hope that this man might have been caught on one of the 15 security cameras set up on each floor of the building and near the exit. In addition, the detectives requested footage from cameras located along Sasha's route from the club to his home, a 10-block stretch. On such a stretch, there was almost 100% chance that the girl was caught in the lens of at least a few cameras. After studying the footage from the club and the surrounding area, investigators immediately spotted Sasha. They could see her leave the establishment and head in the direction of the house. She stood out with her brightly colored outfit, wearing white pants, a purple t-shirt, and flip-flops. It was apparent in these dark shots that the girl was stumbling and staggering slightly, indicating that Sasha had been drinking quite a bit of alcohol in the club, which matched the security guard's testimony. It was also apparent that Sasha left the club alone. A little later, another camera caught her, and this time, she was walking in the company of two girls. The police showed her pictures to Sasha's friends, but no one recognized them. This led the detectives to believe that the three met on the street. It was important for the detectives to find these girls because they might have valuable information. To do this, they sent their photos to the local media, and soon the women were identified. During the interrogation, the girls said that they saw Sasha on the street. At that moment, two men approached her and tried to get acquainted with her. Given that it was late at night, the girls were afraid for Sasha and decided to walk home with her. This helped get rid of those annoying men. After walking some distance, the girls suggested that Sasha call herself an Uber since she didn't have her phone or any other personal belongings with her. They went with her to her house and awaited until she got inside. Given that she didn't have a pass, Sasha had to wait for some other guests to open the door. At 1:46 a.m., the cameras caught a man approaching Sasha and talking to her about something. It turned out that it was a resident of the complex who opened the door for her with his pass. Thus, investigators learned the exact time when the girl was able to get into the building. The man was no longer on camera, so the detectives did not consider him a suspect. The cops continued to study the footage and 20 minutes later noticed something else interesting. All the cameras in the building also recorded sound, and at one point outside the camera's field of view, they heard footsteps. The investigators concluded that Sasha was walking next to this camera in the corridor of the building. The next time she was spotted was at 2:25 a.m., but already in the company of a security guard. They headed in the direction of the parking lot and then returned to the compound. This also coincided with Steven's story. After that, Sasha was not caught on any cameras, and other detectives were at a standstill again. The police decided to question the guys Sasha had been in a relationship with in the past. This idea had to do with the method of murder. More often than not, strangulation is motivated by passion, and the culprit is someone close to them. The first guy's name was Taylor. Again, Sasha broke up a long time ago but continued their friendship. He worked as a bartender and was on duty until 9:30 p.m. on October 16th. He voluntarily provided the detectives with his DNA sample, which did not match the sample found on Sasha's body. A man named Ben was called next for questioning. In addition to being in a relationship with Sasha, he was also the last person she wrote to before she died. Detectives discovered that at 5:12 a.m., Sasha had sent him a text message that only included his name, Ben. This was very strange, especially when you remember that according to the story of the security guard and the two girls, Sasha didn't have her phone when she returned from the club. Investigators also learned that Sasha had planned to meet Ben this weekend. However, the man had an alibi. On the night of the murder, he was with friends. In addition, he voluntarily provided a DNA sample, which also came back negative. By that time, the detectives had finished examining all the available camera footage and noticed something strange. The questioned security guard, Stephen Duxbury, said that his shift ended exactly at 6 in the morning, after which he went home. But one of the cameras captured him leaving the building at 6:36 a.m. And that was not all. He was holding two large trash bags with red handles. Exactly the same ones were lined in Sasha's apartment. After speaking with the management of the apartment complex, the police learned that it was not the responsibility of the security guards to take out the trash. A logical question arises. Why was Stephen late for work for almost an hour, hiding this fact from the police and carrying garbage bags allegedly taken from Sasha's apartment? Given all these suspicious points, investigators offered the security guard a polygraph interrogation. When asked if he had ever entered such an apartment, Stephen answered in the negative, and the machine recorded the lie. Next, he was asked if he knew how Sasha died. 3 different questions came up. Was she poisoned, attacked with a sharp object, or strangled? At the last question, Stephen's pose jumped sharply. Information about the girl's cause of death had not been released anywhere, and the guards simply couldn't know. Even when the police came to Sasha's apartment with the other guards, they were not allowed inside. It turns out that Stephen could only know the correct answer if he was in the girl's apartment at the time of the murder. Despite all this, it is almost impossible to convict a person on the basis of a polygraph reading alone. So the police had to look for additional evidence. Investigators asked Stephen to show them the shoes he was wearing that night. He provided them with a pair of shoes, and their soles did not match the footprint found in Sasha's apartment. However, the police also obtained a search warrant for his apartment, where they found other shoes, and they showed an exact match. Moreover, the fingerprint from the toilet in Sasha's apartment matched the Yvette's. By taking his DNA sample, experts quickly found a perfect match with a sample found on Sasha's body. Police learned even more gruesome details after examining Stephen's phone. At about 5 a.m., he was searching on Google for how to quickly pick a combination lock door. The same one had been installed on the door of Sasha's apartment. Detectives finally found a severe bite mark on Stephen's arm, as well as numerous scratches on his body. All this was enough to arrest the man and charge him with murder. With that set of evidence, no one had any doubt about a conviction anymore. According to the investigation, Stephen saw that Sasha was heavily intoxicated and decided to take advantage of it. After waiting for some time after the girl entered her apartment, he opened the electronic lock, and then he abused and killed the girl. Only one question remains unclear. Judging by the bites and scratches on Steven's body, Sasha struggled to fight back and most likely screamed. How come none of the neighbors heard that? The house she lived in was quite old, and the noise insulation there must have been extremely mediocre. After Steven had finished with Sasha, he began to cover his tracks. The man took cleaner from her closet, spilled it all over the apartment, and even near Sasha's body. He then collected all the evidence into bags, which he later got on camera with. Apparently, he either didn't think about the fingerprint on the rim of the toilet bowl or he forgot. Steven's trial began in November 2017. His lawyer immediately demanded that several key pieces of evidence be excluded from consideration because his client had allegedly been misled. This included boots found in his apartment, as well as polygraph evidence. The news media hyped the story as if the judge was ready to honor the request, but that never happened. All the evidence remained in the case file. However, even without it, Steven's chances of an acquittal were too small. The lawyer also tried to play on the fact that the investigation did not have any camera footage showing his client entering Sasha's apartment, but this attempt was debunked by the fact that his fingerprints and DNA were inside the apartment. Finally, the lawyer stated that there may have been voluntary sexual intercourse between Steven and Sasha that night, and when the security guard left, someone else broke into the apartment and killed her. Of course, this attempt also went nowhere. The trial lasted only a week, which is very short by U.S. standards. After a 4-hour deliberation, the judge handed down a verdict: life in prison for the murder and an additional 15 years for the breaking and theft. After the verdict was pronounced, Sasha's parents made a speech. They thanked the police for their quick and high-quality investigation and expressed their condolences to Steven's mother, who was present at the hearing. They noted that Steven's parents had also lost their child that day. Shortly thereafter, Sasha's family sued the management of the complex, which was responsible for selecting security guards, as well as the manufacturer of the code locks. During the proceedings, it emerged that other residents of the complex had repeatedly complained about Steven's molestation, but management took no action. As for the lock, lawyers for Sasha's family insisted that the model did not meet security requirements. They cited as evidence an article that described how to open such a lock with a simple screwdriver in seconds. In February 2019, Steven tried to appeal his conviction, but the court dismissed his claim. In memory of their daughter, Sasha's parents decided to help the families of other victims cope with their grief. With such a tragic experience under their belt, they could find the right words and phrases to ease their suffering. The outcome of this story is very sad. The man who had been tasked with guarding people turned out to be a murderer. Just a few queries on Google helped him open the door of someone else's apartment without too much trouble. The two girls who met Sasha that night deserve special mention. They didn't just call her a cab on their own account, but drove with her to make sure she got home and was safe. Unfortunately, it was within the walls of her own home that the main danger to Sasha lurked.